Late one night, I was curled up in bed scrolling through anonymous posts on my tablet when one caught my eye. My daughter scored 1560 on her SAT, but she's determined to leave home for an out-of-state university. How can I get her to choose a local school instead and stay with me forever? The comments tore into the parent for being selfish and controlling. However, the original poster insisted she'd sacrificed everything to raise her daughter alone and couldn't bear the thought of growing old with no one by her side. Amidst the barrage of criticism, I saw the top-rated reply. These high school seniors won't see it coming. Wait until she's asleep, take her phone, use the verification code to reset her application portal password, and change all her college choices 2 minutes before the deadline. Once the admissions results are finalized, fake a medical emergency and end up in the ER. She'll be too guilty to ask for a gap year. As someone who had also just scored high on exams this year, I was shaking with anger. I was about to leave a furious reply when I instinctively reached for the phone charging beside my pillow. It was gone. Mom. No answer came from the living room. The treacherous top-rated comment flashed through my mind again. Wait until she's asleep. Take her phone. Reset the password. Change all her applications to in-state schools. Barefoot, I stood frozen in my bedroom doorway, my palms slick with sweat. Then I looked up. A faint blue glow spilled from the end of the hallway. The unmistakable light of a computer monitor. Tap, tap, tap. The keyboard clicked steadily, each keystroke sounding like another nail being hammered into a coffin. When I leaned around the corner, the blood drained from my face. My mother, Whitney Richmond, sat hunched over the computer desk. The cold blue light from the screen cast shifting shadows across her face. She clutched my phone in one hand while the other flew across the keyboard. On the screen was the state university application portal. My name, my exam registration number, and my social security number. Every bit of my personal information was there. At the bottom of the page, bold red letters stared back at me. Application submitted. First choice, Westbridge Business College. Second choice, North Valley Institute of Information Technology. These were schools I'd never even heard of, bottom-tier colleges no one with my score would ever consider. My hard-earned score of 1560 had been thrown straight into the trash. Mom, what are you doing? I lunged forward and ripped the mouse out of her hand. She shot to her feet. The instant she saw me, panic flashed across her face. Then just as quickly, she clutched her chest. Her body arched backward. Bang. She hit the floor hard. My heart. Gemma, my heart hurts. She writhed across the floor, eyes rolling back, gasping for air as her arms and legs twitched violently. I froze. Half the fury burning inside me vanished in an instant. What if this wasn't an act? Mom, don't scare me. I dropped beside her. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength, her fingernails digging into my skin. Call 911. Hurry. I'm dying. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone as I dialed. During the 15 minutes it took the ambulance to arrive, my mother continued fighting for her life. I knelt beside her, my mind completely blank. The emergency room hallway was cold and painfully bright. I sat in a plastic chair, trembling so hard I couldn't tell whether it was from the cold or from rage. My stomach churned, and my throat tightened as if something huge had lodged there, impossible to swallow. Half an hour later, the doctor stepped out. Are you Ms. Whitney Richmond's family? I'm her daughter. Well, it's nothing serious. She had a stress response brought on by emotional distress. Her ECG is normal. Blood pressure's a little elevated, but she'll be fine after some rest. Dr. Bennett removed his mask. She doesn't even need medication. I stared at him for 3 long seconds, unable to say a word. No heart condition. No angina. No near-death emergency. She'd faked the whole thing. I borrowed a phone from one of the nurses and logged into the university application portal with trembling fingers. A line of red text filled the screen. This application cycle has been locked. No further changes may be made. The deadline had passed 47 minutes earlier. I handed the phone back to the nurse. Thank you. My voice was so flat it frightened even me. At 3 in the morning, my mother was snoring loudly in her hospital bed. I quietly reached beneath her pillow and retrieved my phone. I opened the anonymous local forum. The original poster had updated the thread an hour earlier. Thanks for the advice. It worked. I faked passing out and got myself admitted to the ER. The little brat is sitting here, crying her eyes out, watching over me. She doesn't dare bring up taking a gap year. As I stared at the words, the little brat, I bit down so hard on my lip that I tasted blood. My fingers trembled, the tips having gone ice cold. Those 3 words cut deeper than the poisonous advice itself. The anonymous poster was my mother. The next comment made me feel even sicker. A user named Parker Dad replied, "Congratulations. Once she graduates, have her marry my son. I'll pay you $50,000. My mother immediately responded with a thumbs up emoji. My stomach churned. Then someone else asked, "Keeping her close is one thing, but ruining her future, is it really worth it?" My mother answered that one too. Girls leave once they get married anyway. Parker Dad promised that as long as she stays here, she'll marry his son after graduation. I'll get $50,000 for my retirement. And he'll pull some strings to get my brother a county job. Now that's a real bargain. My grip tightened around my phone as I struggled to breathe. The hospital room was quiet. My mother rolled over, mumbled something in her sleep, then started snoring again. 18 years. She'd spent all that time lamenting to everyone how hard it was to raise a daughter as a single mother. The truth? My tuition had been covered by scholarships and financial aid. Every dollar of spending money came from collecting recyclables, handing out flyers, and stocking shelves at the grocery store. I lived in the dorms all 3 years of high school. She never gave me a single dollar toward my monthly food expenses. I couldn't even bring myself to order the cheapest pasta in the cafeteria. Most days, I survived on plain dinner rolls and mashed potatoes. Meanwhile, she spent 5 days a week feeding the slot machines. During my junior year, I won first prize in a state academic competition. The prize money was $3,000. Before I could even enjoy it, she took $2,500 to pay off one of my uncle's gambling debts. She kept the remaining $500. "I'll save it for you," she said. I never saw a cent of it again. After sending the money to my Uncle Derek that day, she sat on the couch smoking in silence. Ashes fell onto her pants, but she didn't even brush them away. Then she quietly said, "My mother did the same thing to me. She gave all the money she'd saved for my wedding to Derek." Back then, I hadn't understood what she meant. Now I did. She'd been sacrificed once. So she believed sacrificing me was only natural. As for my 40-year-old Uncle Derek, he still lived off my mother. Whenever he lost money gambling, he came begging her for cash. When he wanted a new phone, he went to her. When he started dating someone, she paid for that too. She handed over the money without hesitation, then turned around and told me, "Your uncle's had a hard life." The only thing she'd ever bought me was a $30 pair of winter boots. She talked about that purchase for the next 6 months. Back then, she'd still ask whether I was cold. On freezing winter mornings, her fingers would be bright red as she crouched down to tie my shoelaces. Then she'd look up and smile at me. That felt like another lifetime. Somewhere along the way, the only things left to her world were the slot machines and her brother. She used my money to pay off his debts, then bought herself a gold necklace. And now, it wasn't enough to drain my bank account. She intended to sell me too. $50,000. Dawn's light slowly crept through the hospital window. I sat there all night, forcing every ounce of anger back down. My application had already been locked in the portal. Even if I confronted her now, at worst she'd get scolded, and I'd gain nothing. Not yet. I opened my phone and hired a same-day courier. At 7 the next morning, my mother woke up. When she saw me still sitting beside her bed, her eyes immediately reddened. She grabbed my hand. "Gemma, you scared me to death last night. You're all I have. If you move away, what if I suddenly die? No one would even know." The tears came instantly, streaming down the wrinkles in her face. I simply looked at her. She wiped her eyes and choked back another sob. "I know your grades are good, but our local universities are perfectly fine. You'll stay close to home, and I can still take care of you." Take care of me? I took a deep breath and forced a few tears into my eyes. "Mom, I'm not leaving. I'll stay here with you." Her tears vanished almost instantly. A smile spread across her face as she patted my hand. "That's my good girl." That afternoon, after she was discharged, I picked up the package the courier had delivered to the ER reception desk. As soon as we got home, and she went to take a shower, I opened it. I tucked a miniature camera deep inside the leaves of the potted pothos, angling the lens toward the couch and coffee table. Then I took out 2 digital voice recorders. One went underneath the edge of the coffee table. The other was attached to the side of the TV stand. "Perfect." My mother walked out of the bathroom and glanced at me. "Derek's family is coming to stay for a few days tomorrow. Clean out the guest room." "Oh, and Mr. Parker is bringing his son over in a couple of days. Dress up a little. Don't look like such a bookworm." "Okay," I said. Satisfied, she nodded and wandered into the kitchen, humming to herself as she started making lunch. I sat alone in my room, staring at my backpack with its hidden surveillance equipment. "Mom, the biggest mistake you've ever made was thinking all I knew how to do was cry. Early the next morning, Uncle Derek showed up at our front door carrying two oversized duffel bags. Behind him were Aunt Brenda and my cousin, Tyler. Between the three of them, they'd brought 6 bags, filling the entire entryway. Mom made me sleep on a mattress in the living room so Uncle Derek's family could take the guest bedroom. What's wrong with a kid sleeping in the living room? They came all this way. Can't you be a little considerate? I didn't argue. I simply gathered my bedding and carried it out. The first thing Aunt Brenda did after settling in was announce that she was helping me organize my room. She started pulling stacks of books off my shelves and stuffing them into garbage bags, review guides, notebooks, practice tests, everything. These old things are just taking up space. You're not going to college anymore, so what's the point of keeping them? I stepped forward to stop her. Aunt Brenda, those are my things. She looked at me sideways. Your mom already told us you're not going to school. You're getting married. What good are these books now? Tyler needs somewhere to put his gaming console. Tyler was 15 and already pushing 200 pounds. He was rummaging through my closet. He picked up one of my neatly folded bras. Hey, Gemma, is this one too small for you? Without even looking up, Aunt Brenda said, Tyler, knock it off. That's your cousin's. Instead, he swung it around in his hand, laughing. I snatched it away. From the kitchen, Mom shouted, Gemma, stop being so stingy. Tyler's family. I looked around my room to see that everything had been turned upside down. My fists slowly clenched. While Tyler was glued to his video game, I accidentally stepped on the power cord. The screen went black, and he let out an enraged scream. Aunt Brenda stormed into the room, yelling at me for not watching where I was going. Without saying a word, I bent down and plugged it back in. I'd put up with it. At 2 that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Mom rushed to answer it, smiling so hard her face looked ready to split. 2 men stood outside. The first was a short, heavy-set man in his 50s with a balding head, a protruding belly, and thick gold rings covering his fingers. It was Martin Parker, the man behind the anonymous Parker Dad account. Standing beside him was a man in his early 20s with bleached blonde hair, a snake tattoo wrapped around his neck, and 3 earrings in his left ear. His son, Logan Parker. Last year, he'd shoved a 70-year-old woman down a flight of stairs in his apartment complex. His father paid $200,000 to settle the case before it ever reached court. Come in, Gemma. Go pour your future husband a glass of water. The moment Logan saw me, his eyes lit up. He strode over and reached for my waist. Well, damn. My future wife's even prettier than I expected. I sidestepped him, so his hand closed on empty air. The grin on his face disappeared. Mom slammed her hand against the table. What are you pulling away for? The Parkers own 3 apartment buildings in town. A girl like you should be grateful they picked you. Uncle Derek wandered out of the bedroom carrying a mug and a cigarette. My job as head of security is riding on Mr. Parker. Don't ruin the family's future by acting like you don't know a good thing when you see it. Is that a permanent position or just temporary? I asked casually. Uncle Derek answered without hesitation. Permanent, of course. Mr. Parker promised me himself. Standing directly beneath the hidden camera, he repeated the most important detail all over again. Aunt Brenda leaned against the doorway with a mocking smile. So, what if he scored a 1560? A girl who marries well is the real winner. Logan wandered over again. This time, he reached out and grabbed my chin. Quit playing hard to get. Sooner or later, you'll be mine anyway. I slapped his hand away and took a step back. Mom's shrill voice rang through the house. Gemma Richmond, keep this up and I'll drag your name through the mud. The living room fell silent. I lowered my head and stared at my shadow on the floor. Then I looked up and smiled. Okay. Everyone froze. But I continued. If we're getting engaged, shouldn't we do it properly? Mom's expression changed instantly from fury to delight. Martin slapped his thigh and burst out laughing. Now that's what I like to hear. Straight to the point. Mom wrapped an arm around my shoulders. We'll hold your college send-off party and engagement party together next week. We'll make it the biggest event this town's ever seen. Sounds good. I smiled and nodded. What none of them knew was that from the moment they walked through my front door, my hidden camera had captured every second of it. The moment Mom pocketed the $50,000 engagement deposit from Martin, she started acting like she'd won the lottery. She got her hair done, bought herself a bright red dress, and told anyone who would listen, my daughter's marrying into one of the richest families in town. Uncle Derek wasn't any quieter. He bragged everywhere he went that he was about to become head of security. Meanwhile, I played the part of the obedient daughter. Every day, I sweetly texted Logan. Logan, what did you have for lunch today? Your tattoo looks so cool. His replies came almost instantly.
Thinking about you.
When are you gonna come out so I can steal a kiss? A voice message popped up right after. I played half of it before stopping. In a low voice, he said he dreamed about me all night, and if he told me what happened in the dream, I'd be too embarrassed to hear it. My stomach turned as I stared at the screen. Every message was riddled with typos, and every sentence ended with a grinning emoji. But I knew exactly what he liked. I pressed screenshot, saving every message in an encrypted folder labeled Evidence 3. Then I added one more text. You're the sweetest, Logan. Talk tomorrow. The moment I hit send, I tossed my phone onto the foot of the bed as if it were contaminated. Just typing those words made me want to throw up. Logan, on the other hand, loved every second of it. His messages became increasingly explicit. I saved screenshots of every single one. 3 days later, I told Mom I wanted to stop by the Parker's house and help clean. I want to make a good impression on my future in-laws. She was so thrilled and even drove me there herself. Mrs. Margaret Parker happened to be out of town visiting relatives. I spent 2 hours mopping floors, wiping down furniture, and washing dishes. Just before I left, while Martin and Logan were smoking on the rooftop deck, I slipped a digital voice recorder beneath the living room couch. 3 days later, I returned with an excuse to retrieve it. That night, hidden beneath my blankets with my headphones on, I listened to every second of the recording. Mom's voice came first. At the engagement party, get a few drinks into her. Then have Logan lock her in one of the bedrooms. The next morning, I'll bring the relatives in to catch them together. Martin chuckled. And then, my mother. Once her reputation's ruined, she'll have no choice but to marry him. After the marriage license is signed, transfer the $50,000 straight into Derek's account.
Martin, deal.
Oh, and about that financial aid, when the time comes, go talk to old Bill in the admissions office. When I took off my headphones, my hands were shaking, not from fear but from excitement. I turned on my computer and compressed the audio recording, surveillance footage, forum screenshots, and chat logs into a single file. Then I drafted an email and sent it to the state's organized crime tip line. A second email went to the State Department of Education's Office of Inspector General. After hitting send, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I smiled for a very long time. There was one thing my mother would never know. The day after my SAT scores were released, I'd already passed the honors admissions program interview at Northwood State University, the state's flagship university. I'd signed the enrollment agreement, and my student record had already been transferred. My place was secure. Whatever was entered into the regular application portal would never be processed. The applications she'd worked so hard to change had been nothing more than an empty shell. I'd left them there as bait on purpose. The combined college send-off and engagement party was scheduled for Saturday. Mom booked 18 tables at the nicest venue in town, the Grand Oak. On Saturday morning, she called me while wearing her new red dress. You ungrateful brat. Everyone's already here, and you're still dragging your feet. Get over here right now. If you embarrass me today, I'll break your legs. Standing in front of the mirror, I straightened my collar. In my hand was the flash drive containing every piece of evidence. I'm on my way, Mom. I ended the call and looked at my reflection. Mom, you only have a few more minutes before everything falls apart. The Grand Oak Banquet Hall smelled of stale floral perfume, fried pork chops, and cheap champagne. 18 round tables, draped in floor-length white tablecloths that didn't quite hide the scuffed metal folding chairs beneath them, filled the main ballroom. At the front of the room, hanging directly beneath an oversized brass chandelier, was a heavy red banner lettered in gold glitter. Congratulations, Gemma and Logan, a future built together. My mother had outdone herself. She'd spent $3,000 of Martin Parker's advance money to book the room, hire a second-rate caterer, and invite half the town. When I pushed open the double oak doors, the noise hit me like a physical wave. Clinking glasses, booming laughter, and the high-pitched squeal of local gossips. Hanging over wine buckets. There she is. Uncle Derek's voice cut through the clamor before I even had my coat off. He stepped into my path, a glass of cheap whiskey swaying in his hand.
His face was
flushed crimson, his collar unbuttoned to reveal sweat-stained skin. He threw an arm around my shoulder, heavy and reeking of stale tobacco. The star of the night. Look at you, Gemma, he slurred, squeezing my shoulder. Hard enough to bruise. You look like $1 million. Or 50 grand, right? He barked out a laugh at his own private joke, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Make sure you go toast Mr. Parker. He already spoke to the county commissioner. My security gig starts the 1st of next month. Benefits, pension, the whole 9 yards. All because my niece knows how to play her cards. I didn't pull away. I didn't flinch. I just looked at his swollen, watery eyes and smiled. I'm so glad everything worked out for you, Uncle Derek. You bet it did. He patted my cheek with a sticky palm before wandering back toward the bar where Aunt Brenda was piling cold shrimp onto a paper plate, her purse stuffed with stolen cloth napkins. Across the room, my mother was holding court near the head table.
She wore a
Bright crimson dress with rhinestones glued around the neckline, her hair lacquered into a stiff, towering helmet. Her fingers were dripping with cheap gold rings bought, no doubt, with the money meant for my college tuition. When she spotted me, her eyes narrowed briefly in assessment, checking my simple black dress, my plain hair, checking to make sure I looked obedient before her face melted into that familiar, practiced glow of selfless maternal devotion. Gemma, darling, come here. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin with the force of a vice, and pulled me toward a circle of elderly women from her bingo league. Look at my girl, ladies. After everything we've been through, just the two of us struggling against the world, she decided to stay home. She told me, Mom, no fancy out-of-state college is worth leaving you behind. Isn't she an angel? The old women cooed in unison. Such a dutiful daughter, Whitney. You raised her right. In this day and age, you're blessed, truly blessed. I am, Mom whimpered, dabbing at the dry corner of her eye with a lace handkerchief. I sacrificed my entire youth for her. I gave up my dreams so she could have a roof over her head. And now she's staying right here to take care of her old mother. Plus, she's marrying into the Parker family. I stood there like a prop, letting her display me, feeling the weight of the flash drive heavy in the right pocket of my jacket. Excuse me, Mom, I murmured quietly. I need to drop my coat off in the back room. Don't take long, she hissed under her breath, her voice dropping an octave into a razor-sharp whisper while her face stayed fixed in a frozen, joyful grin. Martin and Logan are sitting at table 1. You go straight over there after, and you sit in Logan's lap if he asks you to. Do you hear me? Don't ruin this night. I won't ruin a thing, I said softly. I walked down the side aisle toward the back hallway. Near the sound booth, a small elevated platform enclosed by velvet ropes where a hired AV technician sat. Scrolling on his phone, I spotted Logan. He was wearing a black silk shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest, showing off the thick, faded green coils of the snake tattoo on his neck. His eyes were slick and unfocused, a half-empty tumbler of scotch dangling from his fingers. The moment he saw me walking down the corridor, he stepped out to block my path, leaning his heavy frame against the wall. Hey, beautiful, he drawled, his breath smelling of dark liquor and menthol. Cigarettes. He reached out and grabbed a lock of my hair, twisting it around his fingers. Took you long enough. My dad's already 3 drinks in, talking about buying us a townhouse on the north side.
What do you think about that?
Sounds cozy, I said, my voice dead calm. He smirked, leaning closer until his face was inches from mine. You've been real sweet on the phone these past few days, Gemma. Real sweet. I didn't think a high and mighty bookworm like you had it in her.
He lowered his hand to my
waist, his fingers digging into the fabric of my dress. After the speeches, my dad's got a suite booked upstairs. We're gonna go up there and seal the deal. Early. Your mom said it's fine. I looked down at his hand on my hip, then up into his bloodshot eyes. Let's get through the speeches first, Logan, I said gently. I want everyone to hear what we have to say. He chuckled, a wet, rattling sound in his throat, and patted my cheek roughly. Whatever you want, babe. Just don't keep me waiting. He turned back toward the bar. I took a sharp breath, pulled my phone from my bag, and typed a 3-word text. It's time. Begin. Then I stepped into the AV booth. The technician, a teenager wearing oversized headphones, looked up in surprise. Hey, miss, this area is restricted. I'm Gemma, I said, pulling 2 crisp $100 bills from my pocket and placing them on his mixing console. Beside the cash, I laid down my black, metallic flash drive. My mother wants to play a special tribute video before the toast start. She wanted it to be a surprise for the whole room. The kid looked at the $200, then at the flash drive. He shrugged, picking up the bills and sliding them into his pocket. Sure thing. The video feed is hooked up to the projector and the main speakers. You want me to play it right when the main lights go down. Precisely when my mother takes the microphone, I told him, looking him straight in the eye. Don't stop it. No matter who tells you to turn it off. He chuckled, thinking I was talking about standard party banter. Got it, boss. I walked out of the booth, straightened my shoulders, and walked back into the hall to take my seat. At 8:15 p.m., the heavy brass spoons began clinking against glass stemware across all 18 tables. Martin Parker stood up first, clearing his throat loudly. He tapped his microphone, sending a piercing burst of feedback shrieking through the ballroom's overhead speakers. The crowd settled down, turning their chairs toward the small wooden stage. "Friends, neighbors, esteemed guests," Martin began, his thick fingers resting comfortably on his rotund belly. "We are here tonight to celebrate family, to celebrate tradition. In a world where young people are always running off to big cities, forgetting where they came from, it warms my heart to see a young lady who knows her place." A burst of polite applause rippled through the room. My mother clapped the loudest, tears already welling in her eyes. "Gemma Richmond is a smart girl," Martin continued, winking at the crowd.
A
"Very smart girl. But brains don't mean a damn thing if you don't have family values. Tonight, we celebrate her choice to stay right here in town, to attend local institutions, and to join her future with my son, Logan." Logan raised his glass in a lazy half-toast, grinning around his cigarette. "And now," Martin said, turning with a grand gesture toward my mother, "I'd like to yield the floor to the woman who made all of this possible. A mother who sacrificed everything, Whitney Richmond." The room erupted into applause. My mother rose from her chair like a queen, accepting a crown. She smoothed down her red dress, patted her lacquered hair, and walked up the 3 wooden steps onto the stage. She took the microphone from Martin, dabbing her nose with her lace handkerchief. "Thank you," she sobbed softly into the mic, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "Thank you all so much. As many of you know, being a single mother is the hardest job on earth." When Gemma got her SAT results, 1560, I was terrified. Terrified she would leave me. Terrified she would forget the mother who starved so she could eat, who worked until her hands bled. Up in the AV booth, the young technician pressed play. The main chandelier lights dimmed automatically. The large motorized projection screen behind the stage began to hum as it rolled down from the ceiling. Mom paused, momentarily flustered by the sudden darkness.
Oh.
"It seems my sweet girl prepared a little slideshow for us," she giggled into the microphone, turning toward the screen with a foolish, radiant smile. "She's always been so thoughtful." A sharp static click echoed from the wall-mounted surround sound speakers. The screen flickered to life. But instead of baby pictures or family photos, a crystal clear, high-definition video frame filled the 20-foot screen. It was our living room, captured from a high angle, looking down through the leaves of a potted pothose plant. The room went dead silent. On the screen, my mother walked into the frame wearing her sweatpants, carrying a fresh cup of coffee. A moment later, Uncle Derek stumbled in, tossing his duffel bag onto our couch. "What's the word with the kids' applications?" Derek's recorded voice boomed through the ballroom speakers, crisp, loud, and unmissable. The crowd stared, confused. My mother froze on stage, the microphone trembling in her hand. "Wait, what is this? Turn that off," she yelled toward the back of the room. The technician didn't move. On the screen, my mother laughed on the recording, a harsh, cackling sound that bore zero resemblance to her gentle public persona. "The portal locked 40 minutes ago," Screen Whitney said, taking a sip of her
Coffee.
"I changed every single one. Westbridge Business College and North
Valley IT.
She won't be going anywhere." A collective gasp rippled through the 18 tables. "What about her test score?" Derek's voice asked from the speakers. 1,560 is national news, Whitney. People are gonna ask." "Let them ask," Screen Whitney sneered, waving her hand dismissively. "A girl with a big score just gets arrogant. She thinks she's better than us.
If she
Went off to some fancy state university, she'd stop sending me money.
she'd
Leave me here with nothing. I did what any smart mother would do. I locked her.
down.
Turn it off. Shut it down." Martin Parker roared, dropping his glass. The glass shattered on the parquet floor, amber liquor splashing across his shiny leather
Shoes.
He lunged toward the stage. "Who the hell is playing this? Stop the tape," my mother shrieked into the microphone, her voice breaking into a chaotic panic. "It's a fake. It's AI. Someone hacked the computer." Nobody moved. Every single guest was glued to the screen. The video on screen cut smoothly to a second clip. This one was recorded from beneath our living room coffee table. Martin Parker's own face filled the frame, sitting on our worn sofa 3 days ago, lighting a cigar. At the engagement party, Martin's recorded voice echoed with stomach churning. Clarity. Get a few drinks into her. Then have Logan lock her in one of the bedrooms. The next morning, I'll bring the relatives in to catch them together. Screen Whitney's voice replied without a second of hesitation. Once her reputation's ruined, she'll have no choice but to marry him. After the marriage, license is signed, transfer the $50,000 straight into Derek's account. Screen Martin chuckled. Deal. Oh, and about that financial aid, when the time comes, go talk to old Bill in the admissions office. The ballroom was in utter chaos. Women were standing up, covering their mouths in horror. Men were staring at Martin Parker with looks of disgusted shock. Logie, break that projector. Martin screamed, his fat face turning purple, his neck veins bulging. Break it now. Logan leaped from his chair, his eyes wild, and rushed toward the AV booth. He didn't make it 3 steps. The heavy oak double doors at the back of the ballroom were slammed open. 4 uniformed state troopers, followed by 3 plainclothes investigators, wearing tactical vests labeled Inspector General and State Police, swept into the room. Nobody move, a loud, authoritative voice barked through a megaphone. State Police, stay in your seats. The sudden entrance of law enforcement sent the ballroom into sheer panic. Guests scrambled away from table 1 as if it were infected. Plates crashed to the floor, metal chairs overturned, and shrieks filled the air as the bright overhead lights were suddenly flipped back on by the police, blinding the room. What is the meaning of this? Martin Parker bellowed, though his voice cracked with a terrifying pitch of fear. He backed away toward the side exit, his gold rings catching the harsh light. Do you know who I am? I know the chief of police. I know the district attorney. A tall investigator with graying hair and an official badge clipped to his belt stepped forward, pulling a folded, thick packet of documents from his jacket. Martin Parker? The investigator asked coldly. I'm lead investigator Vance, with the state inspector general's office. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, commercial bribery, and official corruption. Trafficking? Martin yelled, his fat face turning a sickly shade of gray. That's absurd. I was helping a neighbor. This is a family dispute. Save it for your arraignment, Mr. Parker, Vance said flatly. 2 state troopers grabbed Martin's arms, pulling them behind his heavy back and snapping steel handcuffs around his wrists. Dad, Logan roared. His face was twisted in an intoxicated rage. He kicked a chair toward the nearest trooper and lunged at Investigator Vance. Get your hands off him, you pigs. Before Logan could land a swing, a towering trooper stepped in, seized Logan by the collar of his silk shirt, and slammed him face first onto a dining table. Platter dishes, gravy, and half-eaten rolls flew everywhere as Logan screamed. Profanities, writhing under the trooper's heavy knee until the cuffs clicked tight around his wrists. Logan Parker, the trooper growled into his ear, you're under arrest for obstruction, felony assault attempt, and criminal coercion. On stage, my mother was completely hysterical. The microphone fell from her hand, hitting the floor with a deafening thud that echoed through the sound system. She looked around the room, at the horrified faces of her bingo friends, at the state troopers securing Martin and Logan, at the giant projection screen that was still frozen on the image of her discussing the $50,000 payoff. Her eyes rolled back into her head. She clutched her red-dressed chest with both hands and let out a dramatic, dying gasp. My heart, she wailed, her body arcing violently before she collapsed onto the stage carpet. Gemma, help me. I'm dying, my heart is bursting. She began to twitch, gasping for air, her arms flailing just like she had on the living room floor a few nights ago. The room fell quiet for a second. A few older guests gasped. Is she having a heart attack? Investigator Vance didn't even blink. He walked up the stage steps, reached into his folder, and pulled out a sheet of medical paper. Whitney Richmond, Vance said, his voice easily carrying across the quiet room. We spoke with Dr. Bennett at the Memorial ER 2 hours ago. We have your complete medical records from 3 nights ago, including your clean ECG, normal enzyme panels, and Dr. Bennett's sworn affidavit stating you showed 0 signs of cardiac distress and explicitly lied about your symptoms. My mother's flailing arms instantly froze. One of her eyes cracked open, peering up at the investigator in stunned disbelief. Furthermore, Vance continued coldly, We have the wire logs from the local anonymous forum traced directly to your home IP address, detail confirming your premeditated intent to feign a medical emergency to manipulate a minor. The room burst into whispers of pure disgust. She faked it. She pretended to be dying just to trap her own kid? Monstrous. Mom's face went completely pale. The theatrical gasp died in her throat. Slowly, awkwardly, she sat up on the stage floor, her lacquered hair now crushed on one side, her red dress rumpled and cheap-looking. Gemma? She turned her eyes to me, swimming with real, unscripted terror now. She reached out her hands toward me, where I stood near the AV booth. Gemma, baby, tell them. Tell them it was just a joke. I'm your mother. I did it for
You.
I did it to keep us together. I walked slowly down the center aisle, the room parting for me like water. Every eye in that hall was on me. My Uncle Derek was cowering behind a pillar, trying to slip out the side door, but a trooper already had a hand on his shoulder, pulling him back into the light. I stopped at the edge of the stage, looking down at the woman who had brought me into the world. You didn't do it for me, Mom, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the hall, every word was razor sharp. You did it for $50,000. You did it for Uncle Derek's security job. You did it because you couldn't bear the thought of me having a life that belonged to me instead of you.
No.
No, Gemma, I love you, she sobbed, crawling toward the edge of the stage. On her knees. I gave you 18 years. I gave up everything. You gave me plain dinner rolls while you played the slot machines, I replied.
Coldly.
You gave away my scholarship money to pay Derek's gambling debts.
And
When that wasn't enough, you tried to sell my future. I reached into my black jacket, pulled out a second flash drive, the master drive, containing the encrypted chat logs, the high-resolution files, and the full application portal access logs, and handed it directly to Investigator Vance. Everything is on here, I told him. The original video files, the timestamped portal access from her tablet, the forum thread data, and the financial records of the advance payment. Vance took the drive and nodded respectfully. Thank you, Miss Richmond. You've been remarkably thorough. The state attorney's office will take it from here. Two officers walked up the stage, lifted my mother to her feet, and pulled her arms behind her back. Gemma, Gemma, don't let them take me, she screamed, thrashing against the officer's grip as the handcuffs snapped around her wrists. I'm your mother. You can't do this to your mother. You'll burn in hell for this. I watched her as they led her down the stage, past the ruined tables, past the glittery gold banner that read a future built together, and out into the cold night air where police cruisers were flashing red and blue against the dark windows. I didn't shed a single tear. The fallout over the next 3 weeks hit the town like a localized hurricane. The story was picked up by state media outlets. SAT top scorer uncovers family corruption scheme on anonymous forum. The exposure of Martin Parker led to a sweeping investigation into the county's municipal hiring practices. Within 10 days, 2 local officials were forced to resign, and Martin was formally indicted on multiple felony counts including bribery, conspiracy, and extortion. Uncle Derek, stripped of any hope for his county job, was served an eviction notice after his landlord learned of his involvement in the extortion ring.
Aunt
Brenda left him 2 days later, taking Tyler with her. And my mother stayed in the county jail, unable to post the $100,000 bail set by a judge who took a remarkably dim view of parental extortion and computer fraud. 2 weeks after the party, I stood in the visitor's room of the county detention center. A glass partition separated us. On the other side sat Whitney Richmond.
She was
wearing a faded orange jumpsuit, her lacquered hair long gone, stringy and graying at the roots. Without her makeup and her bright red dresses, she looked smaller, older, and hollowed out. She picked up the plastic telephone receiver with trembling hands. I picked up mine. Have you come to withdraw the charges? She asked immediately, her voice flat, devoid of any of her usual theatrical tears. Her eyes were hard, fixed on me, with a mixture of hatred and desperation. The public defender says if you write a statement saying it was a family misunderstanding, I can get probation. I'm not withdrawing anything, Mom, I said quietly. She slammed her hand against the glass, making the frame rattle. You ungrateful little bitch. I fed you. I put a roof over your head for 18 years. You destroyed my life over a stupid college. You tried to destroy mine first, I said, my voice steady, my pulse entirely
calm.
You didn't see a daughter when you looked at me. You saw an insurance Policy. A cash register. A servant to grow old with so you'd never have to face the consequences of your own life. I was your mother, she hissed. A mother protects her child. I replied. You traded me. She stared at me through the glass, her lips trembling, but for once in her life, she had no smooth lies left to tell. The script had run out. I came here today to tell you one thing, I continued, leaning slightly closer to the glass. I went to the house yesterday with a police escort.
I packed my
Clothes, my books, and my father's old desk clock. Everything else in that house, the furniture, your clothes, your slot machine receipts, can be sold to pay off your legal fees. I am changing my phone number. I am closing the joint account. And when I walk out of this building, I am never coming back. Gemma, wait, she whispered, a sudden flicker of panic crossing her face as she realized I was truly cutting the thread. Gemma, please don't leave me here alone. Goodbye, Whitney. I hung up the receiver, set it neatly back on its hook, turned around and walked out through the heavy steel doors into the bright summer sunlight. Late August arrived with a crisp, cool morning breeze that smelled of pine, needles, and damp soil. I stood on the wide, marble steps of the student commons at Northwood State University, my heavy backpack slung over one shoulder. Around me, thousands of fresh-faced students were carrying dorm fridges rolling suitcases, and armfuls of textbooks across the sprawling green quad.
sunlight.
Filtered through the tall oak trees, casting warm golden patterns across the brick pathways. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an email from the registrar's office. Welcome to the Honors Scholar Program, Gemma Richmond. Your full academic scholarship and housing stipend have been processed. I closed the phone and slipped it into my pocket. For 18 years, I had believed that home was a place you were trapped in, a prison built out of guilt, duty, and blood obligation. I had believed that love was something you had to pay for with your freedom. I looked up at the clock tower looming against the clear blue sky, its chimes beginning to ring out the top of the hour, calling students to their first classes. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the clean, cold air of a future that belonged entirely to me, and stepped forward into the crowd.